All right, so my Cocca farm is doing very well. I'm maximizing my profit based on economics here. So I have a bunch of college students I've hired. They work really cheap and they're young, so they can work physical hard labor. But if you don't want to go ahead and continue to work that physical hard labor, then you're going to be like me. You're going to be a number cruncher and you're going to be running this operation. So I want to expand. Frankly, the farm's a little bit stinky, but it is making a lot of money. So I want to go ahead and expand. I'm going to start an apple orchard. All right. So I went and looked up what apples cost at the local Walmart, and they're charging about $4.47 for Granny Smith apples, 3-pound bag. So I'm going to use that because remember, I'm a price taker, so I'm going to use that as my market price, and I'm going to price my product according to that. Now I'm going to assume that Walmart's making obviously a profit, so I'm going to change my price to $3 is what I'm making at the farm. So again, this concept as a price taker, I have to take the market price, so that's the market price that I'm going to take. Now this example is much more detailed. It is definitely more advanced. I am trusting you as college students, and all of you can kind of handle this advanced example here. So I'm going to walk you through it step by step. You'll complete this, and then you're going to be off on your own. We build our knowledge, and you're going to be able to start your own farm, your own business, do all your calculations, and go ahead and make a lot of money accordingly. So here's the worksheet I want you to print out and go ahead and complete. So I'm going to charge $3. I'm going to show you my completed worksheet. Instead of walking you step by step through it, I'm going to post it in there, and hopefully you guys can figure out how I did my calculations and complete this, and then go ahead and do this on your own. So here's my productivity section. Probably the most important thing that you're going to do first is figure out how much you can produce. So in the top section up here, remember from chapter 13, we have our fixed costs and our variable costs. So I'm going to say I'm going to lease some farm for $10,000 a month, and I'm going to get a tractor for $2,000 a month. So remember, we want to make everything apples to apples, so we want to do it on a hourly basis. So my farm is going to be open for 40 hours a week, 4 weeks in the month. Gives me 160 hours for the month. I want to convert these numbers. These are all monthly numbers. I want to convert them into hourly numbers. So I'm just taking 160 divided by 10,000 to get 62. And 160 divided by 2,000 gives me 1,250. Add them together. And if you want, you can round to a whole number. You don't have to do cents to make your math. Just try and make your math as easy as possible. The only variable cost I'm going to have on my farm is going to be my workers' wages. These are the apple pickers that are going to go out there and pick all the apples. I'm going to pay them close to minimum wage. Definitely this type of labor, low-skilled labor, is not going to be paid a lot. And unfortunately, they're going to work a lot of hours. Remember, that's low-skilled labor, doesn't have a lot of different options. And there's a lot of low-skilled labor out there. So I'm going to pay them $8 an hour. So the first thing you want to figure out is how much you can produce. This is going to be the quantity demanded and quantity supplied, all right? Here's our income statement. Our income statement is our totals. Remember, the income statement is revenue minus expenses equals net income. Here's my average cost and my marginal number. So I'm going to go ahead and show you my table, my graph. Don't get freaked out. It is a decent amount of information, but I trust that you guys can work this out, all right? So the first thing you want to do is go ahead and figure out your quantitative numbers. So again, here's my quantitative numbers. Obviously, if I have 0 workers, they're not going to be able to produce anything. If I have 1 worker, they're going to produce about 60 bags of apples an hour. Now, reflecting on my numbers, that's a little bit aggressive. I'm definitely a little skeptical that someone can produce that much over an entire year. So that's why I do have a profit based on my graph up there. Second worker, remember, this has to diminish down. So the second worker is going to produce 50 for a total of 110. Third worker is going to produce 150. These are actually the numbers I use for my Cocca business. If you want, you can go ahead and change the numbers. I probably would have made these a little less aggressive. All right, so 3 workers is producing 40 for a total of 150, 180, all the way down. So these are my total production quantity supplied of bags of apples. And then my change in quantity is the difference. 0 to 60, 60, 60 to 110, 50. Remember, this has to diminish, all right, especially based on quantity supplied. If this doesn't go down, then your marginal cost curve won't slope up. Again, the key to that concept is as I hire more workers, the workers have to pick the harder reaching apples. It gets more crowded. So each additional worker is going to become less productive, which is going to cause my marginal cost curve to slope up. All right. All right, so there's my workers. The midpoint, remember, you only need the midpoint when you graph your marginal numbers. So when I graph my marginal revenue curve and my marginal cost curve, I need to use the midpoints for my graph to be accurate. The midpoint is very similar to the average. It's just the point between 0 and 60. So you can obviously see that between 0 and 60, the midpoint would be 30. If you can't see that, or mathematically, all you have to do is add them together and divide by 2. Technically, it's just the average. So it's 0 plus 60, 60. 60 divided by 2 is 30. 60 and 110 is 170. Divided by 2 is 85. So you're going to go ahead and fill in those midpoints. Now here's our total revenue. Again, here I want to figure out my income statement. Those of you that are accounting majors will like this portion. Remember, it's price times quantity. So I'm going to take $3 as the price, the market price for the apple, times 60 apples produced gives me 180. 3 times 110 gives me 330. So there's my total revenue. Now remember, we need change in total revenue, which I have in purple, because when we graph our marginal revenue curve, it's change in total revenue divided by change in quantity. So from 0 to 180 is 180, 180 to 330 is 150. So you want to go ahead and fill those in and make sure you write it on the line because it is a marginal number. I want my fixed cost, so I brought my fixed cost down from up here. Here's 75, bring that down. Remember, fixed cost doesn't change with production, so it's 75 regardless of how much I produce. My variable cost, I try to keep it as simple as possible here. I'm just taking $8 per worker, so I'm just taking 8 times 1 worker is 8, 8 times 2 workers, 16, 8 times 3 workers, $24. Again, total cost is just your fixed cost plus your variable cost. So you just take 75 plus 0 is 75. 75 plus 8 is 83. 75 plus 16 is 91. So again, I'm also going to need my change in total cost to calculate my marginal cost curve. So it should just be 8 all the way down because we kept it fairly simple. All right. Total profit, again, you're just going to add, or you're going to take total revenue minus total cost. So 0 minus 75 gives me a net loss of $75. 180 minus 83 gives me a profit of 97, and all the way down. So this is really the section that we can look at. My max profit, as you can see in green here, is 514. So that's where I want to produce, and we'll see that on the graph and all that. But that 514 obviously gives me the highest profit. So in that case, I would hire 7 workers and produce 215 bags of apples to maximize profit and to beat my competition. If I hired, so again, this is a key concept. Those of you that are really interested in business, one of the questions is, how many workers should I hire? How many bags of apples should I produce to maximize profit? Well, I want to hire 7 workers, and I would get 215 bags of apple, which would produce $514 in profit. If I hire 6 workers, I get $507 in profit. If I hire 8 workers, I get $512. I can't stress the importance of this. This is a very competitive industry. So if you're operating in this industry, I can guarantee you the big players in this industry, they know how to maximize profit. They know the calculations. If you don't know how to do these calculations, even the small business owner, they're going to struggle because they're inefficient and they're not they're not hiring the right amount of workers, and they're not producing the right quantity to maximize their profit. That's why economics is so important for any type of business to operate. All right, so over here we have average variable cost. Again, you're just taking your variable cost divided by your quantity. So you have 8 variable costs divided by 60 should give you 27. Average total cost, again, just your total cost divided by quantity. So you take your total cost of 83 divided by 60 should give you $1.38. Marginal revenue, again, is change in total revenue divided by change in quantity. So here's your change in total revenue, 180, divided by your quantity of 60 should give you 3. And again, a key concept for this chapter is marginal revenue equals price equals average revenue. So we're going to get $3 all the way down because we're a price taker. All right, marginal cost would be 8, change in quantity, change in total cost, divided by, so here's 8, change in quantity 60, so you should get 13 cents, 16 cents, 20 cents, all the way down here. So again, your marginal cost should be sloping up. Change in profit is just your marginal revenue minus your marginal cost. So again, this is a good thing that it's adding to my profit. So somewhere in here is where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. It's not going to be a nice, easy, even number in the real world. It's not going to be 3 equals 3. So it's somewhere between 3 and 4 is where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. All right, so hopefully you know how to calculate that table below. Once you've calculated the table, now it's time to go ahead and handle the graph. All right, so you're going to graph your average variable cost, your average total cost, marginal revenue, and marginal cost. So what I recommend is when you do this on your own, look at your numbers, see what the highest and lowest numbers are. So obviously 8's the largest number, then you have a bunch of 20 cents and all that. So you want to spread out your scale accordingly. So over here I have my quantities, 0 to 218. I went by 30 increments, which spread it out nice and neat. Again, it's up to you to try and figure out how you can spread that out. You may have to, again, use pencil, erase it, and kind of figure that out. All right, so going by 30 increments works pretty well there. I looked at this and I decided to go by 10 cents up to $1. Then I jumped up from $1, $2, $3, $4, $8. You don't have to keep your scale nice and even. Remember, the graph paper I gave you is obviously scarce. So it's kind of makes sense to try and spread out these numbers so your curves don't get too bunched up. And then I would spread it out a little bit up here. Again, that 8 is just that one data point that I need to capture. All right, so it is important to think about your scale before you go ahead and graph all these data points. Once you have that down, then it's just a matter of graphing your data. So the first one I graphed was my average variable cost. Again, that's 27 cents and 60. So that's right about here. 22 cents and 110 about here. So you see that in the purple here. That's my average variable cost curve. All right, my average total cost curve, again, simple enough. I'm just graphing my coordinates, my X and Y coordinate. So my 138 here is on my Y-axis, and then 60 is on my X-axis. So I take 138, and that's all the way up here, and I take 60, which is here. So there's that data point. So you're going to go ahead and graph your average total cost curve. Remember, we learned this in chapter 13. It should be U-shaped. So you see a little bit of a U-shape going on here. Why is it U-shaped? Hopefully you know this. It's your fixed costs are being spread out. So that's called economies of scale. And it's going up over here because of diminishing productivity. Okay, these are, I can tell you, Jeff Bezos, CEO of Amazon, knows these concepts inside and out. And he's an amazing executor of business principles, and that's why he's the #1 wealthiest person in the world. So he really knows economies of scale because he scales Amazon magnificently. All right, so the next curve you want to graph is simple enough. Your marginal revenue curve is straight across at $3. You're a price taker again. That's the market price. And then graph your marginal cost curve should slope up. All right, so once you have that down, I don't know why that's there. That should be deleted, hopefully. All right, so that should be in there. I'll go ahead and draw in that red portion there. But here's your marginal cost curve. It should be right in there like that. And remember, the point that we're looking for is where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. So that's the intersection right here where my marginal cost curve, marginal revenue curve, where that intersects. That's the main point for this entire exercise to maximize profit. Once we find that point, you can label that if you like. You go down. So this is the key point. A lot of my students, for some reason, have a hard time grasping, or I'm just a horrible communicator. But this is the main thing we want to find is you find that point, you go down, straight down to the average total cost curve, and then you go over to here. So that should be roughly 61 cents. So if we go down to our table, 61 cents is where we maximize profit. So if we did this accurately and you graphed it well, mine looks like it was at about 60 cents, but I wrote 61 cents in here. So that's my average total cost is 61 cents. So that means it cost me 61 cents per bag of apples to produce, okay? All right, and then once I go over there, so let's go ahead and find this section here, which again, this is a part that's hopefully you guys can understand. So it cost me 61 cents to produce. The price of the apples is $3. So the difference between 3 and 61 cents, you subtract $3 minus 61 cents, you get an average profit of $2.39. Now again, that's a really good profit. Obviously, in this industry, it's not realistic that the farmer is going to make that kind of profit. So we're just doing this example, but the market price is going to be pushed down. So I have this market price in orange here. I wrote in the long run, remember, there's going to be more people that are going to enter the market if I'm making that profit, and that's going to push the market price down towards the average total cost curve. Now, in the short run here, I have profits. So I have SR is short run profits. Down here, if the market price were to go below the average total cost curve, remember, I would lose money. So that's why I wrote short run loss. Long run is going to push towards that equilibrium, or it's going to push towards that average total cost. And I wrote over here, ZP is zero profit condition. So remember, this is a key concept in this industry. If you're making profits like the apple farmer is, what's going to happen? More farmers are going to enter the market because they're going to see you're making money, and that's going to push the market price down and push your profits down. Again, I can't stress that you kind of get that concept and kind of the reason you're going through all this energy to learn these concepts. So that's the zero profit condition taking place, all right? In the short run, if the price goes below the average variable cost here, that's where you would shut down. Remember, we learned that earlier, especially the restaurant industry. I'm not covering enough money to cover my workers, all right? And that's just the concept that we're learning. All right, so the last thing I want to go ahead and fill in is over here. I want to know, again, if you go on Shark Tank, they want to know, well, how much is the cost per bag to produce? What's the average total cost per bag, and what's the profit per bag? So the price is $3 per bag. Average total cost, again, 61 cents. My average profit is $2.39. All right, lastly over here, this rectangle in green is my profit area. So my average profit's $2.39. My quantity over here, if you go down, I should have brought this all the way down here to 215. All right, so you can look in your table. The 215 is the quantity I want to produce. So if I go down here, I could write in 215. So the area is going to be your average profit, 239 times 215. If you multiply that, you get $513.85. If you go down here and check 514 and 513, that's just a rounding situation. It actually matches up. If you get all that correct, it should be, hopefully, for me at least, it's gratifying that all that worked out. This is a lot of work, a lot of energy to figure out how to maximize these profits, but that's why you get paid the big bucks, get the college degree, and go ahead and be the managers, the VPs, or the CEOs. All right, thank you for watching. Go ahead and complete my Cocca apple business, and then I'm going to set you free, and you're going to be on your own to go ahead and do your own farm, and good luck. All right, so there's just two things I want to add that I think I forgot briefly. When you graph your marginal cost curve, remember to use the 13 and your midpoint of 30. Otherwise, your marginal cost curve will be wrong. So 13 cents and 30 is right here. 16 cents and 85 is right here. If you don't do that correctly, obviously that's going to push your marginal cost curve to the right, and that's going to cause a problem with your equilibrium and your profit and all that. The other thing I want to briefly mention is that I didn't say in my last portion is remember where the marginal cost curve and the average total cost curve, where they intersect, that's the ATC minimum, which we learned in chapter 13. That should be, if you look down here, it should be about 58 cents, and it should be at about 200 quantity. So it looks like that's about accurate right there. And the other thing we learned is the efficient scale is at about the bottom of the ATC. So I kind of just guesstimated or estimated it's about in this section right here. I'd say roughly 160 or so to about 210 is where I can produce profitably. Obviously, over here is the I'm giving up a little bit of cost here, but I'm getting more quantity. So at this point, this 215 is my ideal profit condition. Even though I'm giving up a little bit of cost, I'm adding to my profit. So I just wanted to add that to you micro experts out there, those of you that kind of remember these concepts for chapter 13. Good job. Thank you.